Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of iWorkinSport live interview. We're back with season 4. I hope you enjoyed a nice break, especially people here in the Northern Hemisphere, all over the world. People enjoyed the Olympic Games. I hope you did. Today, we're going to talk a lot about that. If you don't know what this show is about, you're just arriving here. This is where we talk with accomplished sport business professionals who come here to share their knowledge, experience, tips, and advice in order to help you succeed in your career. My name is João Frigerio. I'm the founder of iWorkinSport. And first of all, thank you for being here with us. Is this your first time? Are you coming back? Let me know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. If this is your first time, you'll see that this is very interactive. We are looking forward to your participation. Also, if you're already there, let us know where you're watching from, okay? And if you're watching the replay, leave a comment there too. We check all of them, okay? And of course, if you're coming back, suppose you like it, so, hit that like button, it always helps. And if you don't know what iWorkinSport is, in general, the company, we're a platform to help you boost your career in sport. If you want to work in sport or if you already work in sport, we're here for you either way. We organize events which connect you with recruiters if you're looking for a job, or with sports management academic programs if you're interested in investing in education. So programs like that can be a very effective way to enter the sport industry. We're going to talk about that too. In addition to YouTube, we're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Everywhere you find us as iWorkinSport. On LinkedIn, there's also a group that you can join and share your ideas with us. It's called We Work in Sport, so you can look for that there too. Now, let me introduce my guest today. We're gonna speak with Robert Fasulo. He is the executive director of the International Surfing Association, and one of the people responsible for making surfing an Olympic sport, which, by the way, was a great success in Tokyo. Was supporting here it is, the Brazilian Storm. We got there. Italo Ferreira did well. In women's, not so much, but it was a great event. Anyway, we're going to talk about that, but also we're going to talk about his impressive career, which is for me, and I'm sure that will be for you, an inspiration, actually, to anyone that aspires to have a truly meaningful role in global sports administration. So he's been, I can say, the Olympic movement, involved in that for over 30 years, and without a doubt, he has a lot to share. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Bob to join us right after this. He didn't play. maybe after this, wrong button. I've been away for a long time. Bob, welcome to the show. You see, this is live. This kind of thing happens. This is why I like this this kind of show.
Thanks, João.
Won't be able to edit. No, thank you so much for doing this, for being here with us. I'm super excited to have you on the show. I know that you have a lot to share with us. Just actually before we start, excuse me, there's already some people checking in. Here, Sylvie watching on LinkedIn. She says it's her first time. So Sylvie, also let us know where you're watching from, please. Erica here in Lausanne. Hello. Hisham in Morocco. Oh yeah, so Sylvie is here in Switzerland. Hugo in Portugal. Ricardo in Mexico. So yeah, I think we covered already a few continents there. There will be more people coming in shortly or leaving their messages here. So Regina says hello from Brazil. Also happy with the Brazilian store. So yeah, it's global. You're very used to it, and I think that's the kind of thing that you like.
Indeed.
So Bob, I have so many questions. I really want to talk about your career, and I want to talk about surfing the Olympics. But let's start with your career. I think it would be nice if you can give us, I know it's a long career, but if you can summarize it in a few minutes, and then we'll start it from there.
Yeah, I don't know if we have enough time for all that I've done. First of all, thanks, Joao. Thank you for having me. Congratulations on what you're doing with this platform and your business. And clearly you've understood there's a need in the growing sport talent industry, and it's well serving a good purpose. So congrats and well done on that.
Thank you.
You know, I took a rather unconventional approach to my career, which has worked very well for me. I was a communications major in college, thought I wanted to be a journalist. And I did a tour through Europe. I came out of college in the late 80s, did a tour through Europe, and also in an unconventional way. I rode my bicycle from London to Rome, which was a big challenge and a big adventure with a friend of mine. We were both athletes in college, and so we had a bit of an adventurous streak in us. And my first real opportunity was with the Associated Press. I started as what they call in the US a gopher, was willing to do a little bit of anything. And that's when I got my first big break, which was with at that time called the IAAF, now World Athletics, which coincided with my passion at the time.
When was that? Sorry, I thought that when you first went to Rome by bike, you were already going to the job there, or
yeah.
was it a coincidence?
So I traveled through Europe in the summer of 1987. And I started working for the Associated Press in the spring of 1988. After being an intern, I worked on the photo desk. I did a little bit of everything at the Associated Press. And it was through the Associated Press that I was contacted by, at the time, the president of the IAAF, who was Italian, probably one of the most influential and powerful guys in the sports world. I really had no idea. I just knew, wow, there's an international organization for track and field. Yes. I'm in. Tell me where I have to go and sign up. No one gave me a job description. No one told me what I was supposed to do, but I knew, they were looking for someone with media experience and was an English mother tongue. And of course could operate in an international environment, was flexible. And that turned out to be I was the right person at the right time. And from there, I built, a fairly strong base. I went from being a media manager in the IAAF to being the personal assistant to the president, to then being the chief of staff for the president. I managed his office. I was the liaison. We moved in those years, those first years I started working for the IAAF for World Athletics. It was based in London. And we moved the office to Monaco, which is where it's based now. That was a big effort and a big accomplishment to move the office at the time, and then that job opened up a lot of doors for me, and from there I became sort of the part-time secretary for the Association of Summer Olympic Federations, because Primo Nebbiolo, who was the president of the IAAF at the time, was also president of that association. He did a lot of different things. He was president of FISU. He was an IOC member. He was president of the IAAF. So because of all those different roles I had exposure to a lot of different leaders, a lot of different organizations, and learned very quickly how the Olympic world worked, and developed relationships, built a basis of a reputation for myself in the work that I did. And from there, it gave me a good cross section of leadership roles. I went from there, after Nebbiolo passed away at the end of 1999, to be the first professional director at ASWAF in Lausanne. That was just after the Sydney Games in 2000. And from there, I went on to be the head of international relations at the United States Olympic Committee. So most of my career has been on the management, leadership side of Olympic sport. After leaving the U.S. Olympic Committee, I created my own business consulting company, doing sport, working for a variety of clients, interesting clients all over the spectrum, from companies like Nike to sports federations. And that was about 10 years ago that where I was first introduced to my friends from surfing.
Cool. And at Azoif, were you based here in Lausanne?
I was. I lived in Europe for nearly 20 years. So Europe played a very important part of my life. It's been interesting because I came to Italy without a word of spoken Italian. My origins are Italian. I have a strong cultural connection, had a strong cultural connection to Italy when I first came there, and learned Italian. I spent really the first couple years learning Italian, getting involved and really integrated into the cultural element of Italy. And then from Italian, I learned French, moving to the French-speaking part of Switzerland. And of course, Spanish came along with that as well. So language is a really important part, at least for my work and the work that I do. The ability to communicate with people across the spectrum of cultures and languages really opens up doors in a different way.
100%. There are already some other comments here and questions. We're going to get to that in a second. But before we go, I want to off the bat, you described quickly your career, summarized 30 years in 7 minutes or so. Are you able to, for people watching and starting their career now, maybe tell us what was the most important lesson that you learned in those 30 years?
Yeah, difficult.
Is there one that you say, wow?
Yeah, very, very difficult to point to just one thing. But I want to talk about some general principles. What I would say, please. One of the first things that comes to mind is a quote that's attributed to Henry Ford. And he said, if you think you can or you can't, you're usually right. In other words, if you believe in yourself and you don't put obstacles in front of yourself and you work hard, you can really accomplish anything you want. And, look at my example with surfing. I really had no experience, no knowledge of the sport. And I could have very easily talked myself out of it and said, well, who am I to tell them how to run an organization? Of course, the difference was I understood very well the Olympic world. I had a lot of very strong relationships. I understood what an international federation needed to be in order to aspire to be an Olympic sport. And those, together with the right combination of leadership there, we are very fortunate in the surfing federation to have an extraordinary leader, president, guy named Fernando Aguirre, who's from Argentina originally, but started a business in the United States and a very successful business. He's been an entrepreneur, which I think goes a lot towards how we've been fairly disruptive, at least in our approach. So that's kind of a long-winded way to say, you have to believe in yourself. You have to work hard. Sometimes you have to sacrifice. You have to be ready to put in the long hours. Those are fundamental things for me as far as lessons that I learned early on that stay with me today.
Yeah, one thing that I find it super interesting there is the fact that you're not a surfer or you're not involved with the sport at all. In fact, there's someone asking here, I think Regina in Brazil is asking you if you're a surfer or if you were, because I think she can see the surfboard behind you.
Well, of course, I love the ocean, and I do my best to get out in the water as often as I can. I'm not very good at it. I really only in the last few years have spent more time trying to learn. It's a difficult sport to learn later in life, but it's a sport that stays with you your whole life. So part of my success, I was not hired because of my surfing skills. Yes. And many people in the Olympic movement have said that they were happy that surfing brought someone in from the outside, because I managed to bridge that gap from the surfing world to the Olympic world and vice versa. So that's been a key part of the success.
I think in the end of the day is also very dependent of what you bring to the organization or what they're looking for, right? I think what they wanted at the time was someone with a lot of Olympic experience anyway, and that's how you fit in so well.
Yes.
I'm gonna before I go to the next questions, let me just acknowledge some people here. Just a shout out to Lucas in São Paulo, Otacílio as well in Brazil. There is I'm gonna check someone in LinkedIn here from Canada. Who is that? Danica in Canada. There is Life Chameria in Zimbabwe. Nice. Renata Hotz, a friend of us, is already asking questions about surfing in the Olympics.
Yes.
We're gonna get there. Renata, hold on for a second. Yeah. We're gonna do this part now, focus more on Bob's career, and we're gonna talk about the games and surfing in a second. Just to continue, we had Julie here. She is in Nantes. And Oam Twaj, thank you for sharing such good knowledge. He's in Thailand. I love doing the show because of that. You never know where people are going to come from. Yeah. So I'm so thankful that you guys are watching out there. Now, Bob, again, people watching this, many of them will be starting their career looking for, sort of what to do next. And I suppose that many of them will be interested in surfing in ISA, but maybe in general now, I mean, we're coming out of a global pandemic. Yeah. Where would you say opportunities are for whoever, is looking for a job in sport?
Yeah. Again, I think of an expression, opportunity or opportunity is the result of necessity, something like that. One of the things we all learned, here we are on this platform, this streaming platform, there are a multitude of them who have blossomed in the last year. And really it's, taking what has been an awful situation with, no one being able to travel, and of course the health crisis and economic crisis, a lot of things that happened. 2020 was a bit of a loss for everyone. And look at how that's changed the world. And, one of the things that we understood, we took the time in our organization to rethink a little bit our digital strategy, to look at where we are in the digital space, knowing that that social media and new media and digital media play a critical role in our success, and is a media that is very comfortable for our community. Our community operates and thrives in this space. So for me, there's a big opportunity around the changing media landscape. The historical conventional model of media rights and exclusivity, and there are only a handful of big properties: FIFA, Formula One, maybe the Olympics. But even the Olympics, I'm sure many people would have seen, there was some controversy around the ability to watch. And even though the media output from Tokyo was beyond anything that I think has ever been in an Olympic Games, there's still a lot of challenge and to reach and attract new audiences. It's something that that was one of the parts of an important part of the value proposition that we brought, that we gave the Olympic movement exposure to a new audience, a new demographic. And so, this fragmented media world, understanding how that works, I know that in our organization, the ability to work easily and around all the newest tools and techniques, whether it's TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram, which are really the leaders. Facebook's a bit for the older school, as is Twitter, is a little bit more corporate. So, really thinking about how, you can bring value to that space. That for me is really the next new big opportunity.
Great. Is that in general? So media, so new technologies, Is that in general, or is that in the ISA as well? Is that skills on demand?
Yes.
Just to complete, I don't know if you're hiring
both.
or
Well,
wanting
both,
to hire.
in a sense. I mean, it's interesting. I'm sure, I don't know if some of your viewers have seen, but there's been a lot of rankings of the federations, and one of the things that will be an important outcome from Tokyo, we're very confident in what that looks like for us, is how we're measured across different digital media. The audiences that we've generated, obviously broadcast audiences is still an important part for the Olympic world. But really it's how we're measuring against new media. So we had a very specific plan, and we also worked together with the World Surf League. I know you have questions about that. We knew that the World Surf League, which is the professional tour of our sport, also has a big audience, big following. We wanted to harness that. We wanted to capture that. So we spent a good part of the month prior to the Olympics talking to them, strategizing with them, helping them understand they're new to the Olympic world, but have played an important part. So, this ability to understand marketing campaigns. How do you set up a marketing campaign across social media? How do you measure that? How do you understand social media engagement? So those are all things that we're going to continue to invest in the ISA. And, it's growing even further and getting even more complicated, I'm sure, whether it's non-fungible tokens or other things like that are becoming innovations.
Great. So I think you're very clear in terms of the skills, and I think we can confirm here to Renata, who leaves a message here, that she doesn't need to be a surfer to have a chance at the ISA.
No, I mean, I would say, we have a small team in our organization, and some of them are really good surfers, and that passion is extremely important. Loving what you do, believing in what you do, caring about what you do is important, but it just goes to show, you have to find what it is, in your angle, your element that brings value to this. And of course, I knew when I first got involved that it was a fun and exciting sport to be involved in. It's not that often that you can go to work wearing flip-flops and shorts. And that was kind of the style. It was another one of the innovations that we brought to Tokyo was, we're very casual. We're very serious and professional about how we go about what we do, but we have a different look and a different feel, about a vibe about how our sport's presented.
Great. Listen, there's a message here from someone you know. So Claude Ribal is here saying, great to see you, Bob. It's an amazing sports career. Great choice of interview. I know. And just so you know, Claude, I heard he watched some of your interview to prepare for this one.
I wanted to see how the real experts handled such an interview. So I watched some of Claude's. Claude's an old friend and a great pro, and we go back many years. Worked together in the early years of my career at the IAAF when he was working for a big marketing agency.
Great, and another legend in the industry, someone that I've been lucky enough to learn a bit from him. He's very kind as well and generous with his time as well.
Yeah.
Bob, I did, and many other friends of mine did as well. I'm a master's in sport. I think that's actually the first time we met. I think you taught our year, and then throughout the years we've met many other times.
Yeah.
What would you say is the real value of, say, formal education in the industry?
Yeah.
Say sports masters or a different kind of diploma or education?
Well, some of your colleagues might not like me saying this, but for me, the real value has more to do with the relationships and the networking that you do in getting that formal education. And obviously, you are a good example with the creation of this platform. You came out of CIES, and I had the opportunity, and actually am a fan of both those programs. I consider them the best in the business, CIES and AISTS, both Swiss-based, but feel like personally there's more value in practical experience than theoretical. The MBA, Master of Business Administration, has a lot of value in the U.S. market. If you're focused on the U.S. sport business market, I think the MBA is something that's worth pursuing. But really, at the end of the day, it's about what you accomplish in the real world delivery and substance of what you do. And, I think there's always a balance. And I think there's a value, and I think that the education helps create some basis for formal training. But really, it's the getting your feet wet in the real world is the best kind of experience. And getting out there in the world, traveling, doing events, being exposed to other cultures and the way business operates in different parts of the world. And I just think about, what we just went through in Japan, and I'm not sure that any other culture in the world, with its discipline, collective structure, its humility, would have been able to deliver what was done, what was accomplished in Tokyo, other than the Japanese. But you have to understand how the Japanese work. You have to understand how they think. You have to be respectful of how they work and how they think, and that's a critical part for being successful in running events in a country like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and I have to say that I think that the whole world must be super thankful to the Japanese people. I know there was some resistance there, but they went through and they delivered. And in the times that we are now, I think that was exactly what we needed. I mean, it would be a shame not to have the Olympics.
It is.
We missed. It was a little sad to see the crowds and all, but it was great to see the athletes performing in such a high level.
Yeah.
So, arigato, friends from Japan.
Yeah, no, I'm no doubt about it. I mean, I know that you want to talk about Olympic surfing, and we can certainly get into that. We just had a few days ago the announcement that one of the biggest professional tour events for surfing was canceled because of COVID and because of the state of emergency in that particular country. And it just, I send notes around to some of our team and just reminded us just how what we accomplished in Japan and how grateful we need to be. It was certainly bittersweet to see the empty stadiums and not be able to welcome the public, and that would have had a big impact for sure. But I'm not sure any other place in the world would have been able to do what they did, and it really was remarkable because it was that kind of discipline that was needed to be successful.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, let's talk about surfing in the Olympics. There are already some questions here. We're going to get to that. But how do you so explain to someone that doesn't know the process very well, how do you actually turn a sport that is not in the Olympics and make an Olympic sport? So how did you do that? How the idea come about? And how did you join the process? Walk us through all that.
So, I came into a vision and a plan that was already in the works. So I mentioned earlier the president of the International Surfing Association, Fernando, who had this vision already almost 30 years ago. When he was elected president of the ISA, he was inspired by a story which not that many people know about. We're trying to promote, and we've made that a key part of our narrative, both in Tokyo and before and after, which is Duke Kahanamoku, which Duke was a Hawaiian, native of Hawaiian, Polynesian descent, someone who is considered the father of modern surfing, but was an amazing swimmer. And in fact, was a 3-time Olympic gold medalist, 5-time Olympian, starting in 1912. And Duke was the first real ambassador of surfing worldwide. He would travel around and do surfing demonstrations. He surfed, from what we understand, in Stockholm in 1912 in his first games, and already then started to express his hope and his belief that surfing could be an Olympic sport eventually. And Duke represents a lot of the values and the qualities that makes surfing different. This aloha spirit, aloha, which means love in native Hawaiian. It's a love for the ocean. It's a love for your fellow human being. It's for yourself. These are important parts of who we are and what we do. And so when I came in, I had just left my role in the United States Olympic Committee. I was based here in Southern California. And interestingly enough, I was introduced to Fernando by the Olympic Games executive director, Christophe Duby, who's also an old friend of mine. Christophe, understanding that, Fernando had these ambitions. He had been working on it, but maybe not as focused until that point, until I came into the picture. And I was able to sort of bring a convergence of different interests and different ideas and strategies, and try and really focus our energy more and more directly. It's a challenge. The reality is, we were fortunate. We were very fortunate in terms of timing. We had done a lot of work. And so I had started already as an advisor to the ISA in 2011. And for those who are familiar with the Olympic movement, they would know that, there was a big change that came about with the election of the new president of the IOC, Thomas Bach, in 2013. And he came in on a platform of change. And one of the things that he wanted to try and do was bring new sports. And we saw that. I had already been obviously involved in the ISA for some time. And fortunately, we had already done some of the groundwork, educating, lobbying, talking, building relationships with key influencers, helping people understand what surfing is. Because a lot of people really just didn't know. They didn't understand. They thought windsurfing was already a discipline of sailing. People were confused. They didn't understand. So there was a combination of building relationships, educating people, marketing, almost like direct marketing to the Olympic leaders, helping them understand the value of this sport, that the appeal that it could deliver. But we also knew that we had a very solid product. We knew that we had an organization behind us, even though relatively small. We were in, I think we had members in almost 70 countries by that time, and now we have members in over 108. So that was a key part of the strategy as well, was making sure the federation was continuing to develop and continue to grow, to be able to show that you have a universal participant base, extremely important in order to be considered as an Olympic sport, that you are active in all the continents. I mean, if you look at our success, a part of our success in Tokyo was that we had, of the 6 medalists, we had 5 different countries. So that was huge. Of the 40 athletes that we had participating, we had 18 countries represented. So that's a pretty extraordinary representation of the global face of sport. And to be able to promote that, even though a lot of people think, well, you have to have a coastline in order to surf. No, surfers are travelers by nature. So we have active members in Switzerland. We had a qualified athlete from Germany. So it was, that's a little bit of the value. But then coming back to the story of how we saw the opportunity, of course, with the new IOC president, he brought Agenda 2020, which was his master plan strategy. In there was the opportunity for the organizing committee to propose new sports. And we were invited together with 26 other sports at the beginning of 2015 to make a presentation to Tokyo. We went, we presented, it started first, we presented in writing, and it was narrowed down to 8. And then those 8 sports were invited to Tokyo. And there's a lot of work that goes into those documents, but also those presentations. It's really a sales pitch there. And that was a critical part of our success. I was in August of 2015 was when we went to Tokyo and presented to the OCOG leadership for the first time.
Yeah, you answered one of Renata's questions. She was very interested in the whole process, wanted to know how long it took. But part of her question as well was if surf also got a bit lucky in a sense that had probably the exact profile of what the IOC was looking to attract a younger audience as well.
Yes,
I guess.
Absolutely. And in fact, if you look at the 5 sports, the new sports that were included in Tokyo at the time, the IOC, after we presented in Tokyo, and I think we did really well, we were very focused on that, what was different about our sport. We would bring something truly unique and different, and we demonstrated that now here in Tokyo. But the IOC told us quite clearly that, that even though it was a process that was open to the organizing committee, if they had left it completely in the hands of the organizing committee, we would have had sports that only appealed to the Japanese public. So the IOC made it very clear to Tokyo, we also want these youth sports. So skateboarding, sport climbing, and surfing were the beneficiaries. Of course, each of those in their own different way. We had to have done the work. We had already done 4 years worth of work. Well, Fernando, 20 years worth of work, but we'd done 4 years worth of very focused work on helping the Olympic leadership and the Olympic movement understand who we are. Right.
Well, a question from Hisham here. He's asking, what's the role that the hosting country play in encouraging the inclusion of a new sport in the Olympics?
Very important role. And for us, surprisingly, it's funny because one of the guys that we had on our presenting team in Tokyo in August 2015 is a guy named Masatoshi Ono. Masatoshi Ono, Masa. He was probably the best known professional surfer in Japan. A lot of people wouldn't have thought that Japan had a vibrant, strong surf culture, but it does, and it did at the time. So Masa was our athlete representative on our presentation panel. He was the coach. He was one of the coaches. And we were just exchanging messages last week about how much we accomplished and how he was there with us from the beginning. But the importance of having a strong, vibrant community of your sport in that country. We've been very fortunate because, of course, we started in Japan. Couldn't have been a more ideal location for us. We went from there to France. Very fortunate with France. I'm not sure it would have been the same if Madrid had been chosen or Istanbul. We would not have probably been so successful. In the case of France, we had the good fortune of having both France and California, Los Angeles, two very successful and very active surf cultures. Obviously, surfing was born in Southern California, so we've been very fortunate to have that runway and that long runway. And now, of course, we've had Brisbane announced just at the beginning of Tokyo, where is also some of the best surf spots in the world in the Gold Coast of Australia.
Yeah, but you're talking about France, but you mentioned before to me off the air that the Olympics competition won't be in continental France, right?
Correct. I think it's a testimony to the IOC's determination to embrace new ideas and innovation. Honestly, when we first heard this idea, we couldn't believe it. We thought, are you kidding? That would be amazing. The thing for us and the beauty of that choice, that is, instead of trying to fit surfing into continental France, where in the summer, unfortunately, the waves just aren't that strong. And instead of trying to force us to fit into a location where there would be a risk for the performance of the sport, they were willing to adapt and take us to a part of French territory. At the end of the day, French Polynesia, Tahiti is a French territory. And I don't know if any of your viewers have been watching, the last week have been some of the most spectacular swells and waves in Tahiti in its history. Incredible. I don't know that we're expecting that for the Olympic window, but it will create an amazing, spectacular platform to showcase the sport. And really that for us is the nice thing, is that they're willing to accept that the IOC and the organizing committee, it really was an organizing committee idea. they were the first ones who came to us with this idea and were the drivers of it. You know, it's an opportunity for us to highlight sustainability. You know, this is a natural island environment, very basic, very raw, and for us, extremely important to protect that environment, and gives us an opportunity to highlight some of those sustainability messages that that are so important to our sport.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's exciting. I think that's a great idea. There are some more people also saying hi here. Rob, let me just
Iran.
say hi to Zara from Iran.
Nice.
Atef.
We have a member in Iran, by the way, an active member who comes and participates at our events. For me, it was one of the exciting moments when we announced our 100th member of the ISA, which was actually the Surfing Federation from Iran, and part of that, extremely important part of that announcement, was that women also would have the opportunity to participate. You know, awesome. I mean, it's a culture that we respect. They have their ways, but it was very important for us for women to have the opportunity to participate. And you know, so that's an example of how, you know, we're continuing to go beyond borders, surf borders.
Great. So Atef here from, so we had Iran, now Saudi Arabia, Jaime here in Lausanne. Who else is here? Ita Beleng from Lesotho.
Nice.
Marlene Brown, I believe she's in the Caribbean because she's asking if there's any surfing organization in the Caribbean.
It depends on which Caribbean nation you're talking about. We have active members in the Bahamas, in Jamaica, and Central America. You know, we have just had our World Surfing Games this year in El Salvador, extremely successful. So yeah, we have an active surf community in the Caribbean for sure.
Great. So Jaime said that he saw the waves this week. They're huge.
Yeah. Tahiti actually be the opposite problem of what we had in Japan, which is it's entirely possible the waves would be actually too big to surf. And
wow.
We saw some very brave and courageous surfers, including Ramzi Boukiyam from Morocco, who was surfing last week in Tahiti. He was one of our qualified surfers one of the few qualified surfers we had from Africa. I'm very proud of Ramzi's success, and he was facing this amazing, challenging wave. But yeah, and it's one of the most powerful waves in the world. So something we have to be extremely careful about how we manage the athlete safety.
Yeah, well, definitely. Sir Brings is saying hello from South Africa, and Wolfgang from Peru says that it would be awesome to have the games there, the surf in Tahiti.
Yeah.
Actually, let me remind everyone that we're going towards the end of our talk here with Robert Fasulo. So if you want to send your questions, don't be shy. Do that. I still have a few more questions that we can go through.
Yeah.
But Bob, so you went through, the whole process, I think in detail, it was great. Was there one biggest challenge that you would point out, apart from COVID, the threat of canceling the games? Yeah. In the process of bringing surf to the Olympics?
Yes, I would say it was trying to fit the unpredictability of surf culture, the unpredictability of surfing. It's one of the biggest challenges that our sport faces, is that the field of play is constantly changing. There's no other sport in the world where, well, maybe sailing, where the field of play is literally fluid, continually changing every day. And of course, we are dependent upon weather conditions. We're dependent on swell conditions, and fitting that into what was essentially a Swiss and Japanese model of Olympic operation. Obviously the IOC is an international organization based in Switzerland, and it has a very regimented approach to the games where everything is timed down to the millisecond. We had basically 9 days to run 4 days of competition, depending on how the waves were. Yeah. And we spent a lot of time talking to, and I must say to credit the IOC, they understood. They, the sports director of the IOC, Kit McConnell, is a Kiwi originally, spent a lot of time, grew up in Australia, understands surfing well. And so that understanding of the need for flexibility, we were asking for flexibility in probably the least flexible culture in the world. And so it was a challenge we spent a lot of time talking about contingency planning. In the end, we didn't need as much. Thank goodness, we didn't really need the contingency planning, but the results were extraordinary thanks to a very well-timed typhoon coming early, probably the earliest. Normally typhoon season in Japan is September, October. The best events, the biggest events, surf events in Japan are usually held in that period of time, September, October. It was our biggest fear going into Tokyo, was that the conditions would be small and that it would not properly showcase the sport the way we hoped it would.
Cool. And finally, now it's done. How do you assess the whole thing? The process, it's delivered, it's finished. I mean, for us, I think watching from TV, it was great. It was amazing, great fun. But you have all your series of KPIs. So how was it in the end?
Well, I think, first of all, we'll be measured primarily by the IOC. So the IOC goes through a process for all the sports, in the case of Tokyo, 33 sports. They're being evaluated across 18 different criteria. Amongst those, I mentioned some of those at the beginning: digital engagement, page views, viewers. We're quite confident that we exceeded all expectations. In fact, from what we've heard from the Olympic leaders that we've spoken to, that we by far exceeded their expectations, which was the most important metric for us, to make sure that the IOC understood that we brought value. It wasn't just about us. We wanted to raise the value of the games collectively. We were humble enough to know that we can't, be the superstars. We can't be at the front. But for example, we were amongst the top, speaking of Brazil and your country, Joao, we were very fortunate that, we had great surfers from Brazil. So it generated a lot of interest. We were amongst the top 5 broadcast events in Brazil in the first week of the games, for example. Yeah. We're confident that we'll be probably in the top 10 in terms of social media engagement. And we were clearly one of the stories. We were one of the top stories coming out of the games, and we continue to generate positive media. The IOC president himself spent nearly 3 hours with us on the final day of our competition. So, the IOC very earnest in wanting to understand and embrace what was something completely new.
Great. There is a very good question from Lucas Santos here, so I'm going to bring this up. So do you see any possible connections of surfing to the emerging esports market? Are there any games or platform, that industry that you're looking into?
Yes. Well, obviously, esports is a hot trend, and something which we're paying very close attention to. We're a relatively small organization, and so have had limited bandwidth. There is one game. It's primarily a mobile app game called True Surf that we're following. That we've had actually a number of conversations with the founders of it. They're born out of action sports, so they've got the success drivers of their sports are their games are True Skate and True Surf. I think they have 400,000 active daily users or monthly users for True Skate and 100,000 for True Surf. So there's a big community there of gamers that we're interested in trying to tap into. Obviously, the IOC is as well. They had this 5-sport virtual Olympic series that they did earlier in the year. We have had conversations with them about how we might be able to participate in the future. So absolutely, it's a key part of our thinking going forward.
Great. And Bob, now that so the games, are gone, what's the impact that you think the Olympic Games will have in the sport of surfing? And that will impact probably the professional tour as well, but you have your own World Surfing Games.
Yeah.
And what is it that you expect will happen?
Yeah, I mean, the future is wide open for us. I mean, for me, it's really, there's before Tokyo and after Tokyo. And we have, you mentioned the WSL, World Surf League. Fortunately, we have an excellent relationship with them. I mean, there's always some element of give and take and differing agendas between a professional league, a purely professional league. I mean, you would be familiar with this, Joao, but for some of your viewers, between the NBA and FIBA, between the NHL and IIHF, there's always a little bit, I don't know if it's tension, but differing agendas, differing motivations.
Yes.
We had early on an active engagement with them. They were part of our qualification system. We have a lot of opportunity to grow and develop together. We have to be successful, both of us, for the sport to continue to thrive. But there's a lot of opportunity for us now, and we're reflecting. I mean, now it's only a couple weeks away from the success that we've had, but clearly we have generated enough interest, enough global value for the Olympic movement that it's going to be different and exciting, because it gives us an opportunity to grow as an organization and as a sport. We've had, a lot of, anecdotally, we've had governments now from countries where we haven't had active surf members saying, oh, okay, this is real. They see it on TV. They understand, we had qualified athletes from Ecuador, from Chile, from Morocco, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That we had the Minister of Sport with us from Morocco at the first day when Ramzi went in the qualifying rounds. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to continue to grow and develop. World Surfing Games being a cornerstone. It's our outdoor world championship, effectively. We run every year.
Organized by you, or are there organizing committees or local organizing committees?
It's us. It's our property, and we enter into agreements with hosting organizations. In the case of El Salvador, it was the government. The government of El Salvador made a big commitment to surfing, and you and I were talking about this before we started the broadcast. That how are we funded as an organization? Surfing is unique in that you can't do it in a stadium. You can't do it actually now with surf parks, which is a whole nother discussion. With artificial waves, there is a new opportunity there, but generally speaking, and at least our long-term view on Olympic surfing is in the natural waves. We don't have the benefit of a controlled environment. We don't have an arena. We don't have a stadium. It's always changing. So a big part of our value proposition is in surf tourism destination. So destination marketing organizations become an important partner for us. And in the case of El Salvador, they decided they were going to construct their entire national brand around surfing. They created something called Surf City El Salvador as a way to show that El Salvador is a place that can welcome people. And our World Surfing Games, I think we had 280 participants from 51 countries in May this year, and we ran it in a COVID-safe environment. Very challenging, very difficult, but we managed to pull it off. No spectators, just like Japan. Very strict protocols. But because we had this government partner, very motivated, very committed, both operationally and financially, it meets mutual objectives.
Great. Bob, we're going to the end. I know that you have a kind of a hard stop in just a few minutes. So just quickly, I want to say that when you talked about the future of surfing, you also replied to a question from Wolfgang Pedal Bartel in Peru. And Jaime here in Lausanne has an interesting question. So do you have any idea or intention to open an ISA office here in Lausanne to be closer to the IOC?
Yeah. Well, two things there. One is the surfing industry. It's funny because over the weekend, they had what's called the Waterman's Ball, which is the biggest fundraising event for the Surf Industry Manufacturers Association, SEMA. It's an annual event they do to raise money for environmental causes, for a number of different initiatives that they support. And we were recognized, the ISA was recognized at this event, and Fernando was there, I was there, and really felt the full embrace of the surf industry. I mean, it's extraordinary. As I said, there's before Tokyo and after Tokyo. Now everyone gets it. And the athletes get it. I mean, the athletes who might have been a little bit skeptical now, and you saw the comments, I don't know if you saw the comments from Italo saying this success is everyone's success. My medal, everyone, all the surfers that are here, and it's going to continue to grow because now they've understood what the platform is, what the Olympic Games is. As far as opening an office, sure. I mean, it's within, the possibilities. I obviously have a lot of experience in Lausanne. I know the place well, lived there for 6 years. That could be one of the extensions of our long-term relationship with the Olympic movement, but it's a little bit early to be able to talk about that. Obviously, the surf industry is primarily based here in Southern California, so it's important for us to be close to the industry. The World Surf League is based here as well, so those are important relationships and stakeholders for us.
Yeah, maybe one thing that Jaime may not realize is that ISA has 6 full staff. You do incredible things with very few people, right? It's not like you can have people. You have collaborators all over the world, but in terms of full staff, it's a small organization, right? We
are. We're not the only ones. I mean, there are some federations who operate with a small central staff and then have subcontractors all around the world, which is also the case for us. We'll run, in the case of the World Surfing Games, I think we had 50 to 60 staff from all over the world, photographers, webcast production, all people that we subcontract event by event. And that's a way to keep costs down. We have a relatively modest budget, but, I think now with this having passed this important milestone in Tokyo, it's a different conversation with the IOC. We have not benefited from the same funding that some of the other sports have, but now with this success, we look forward to that opportunity in the future, and that should help us grow.
Cool. Well, I think one last question here from the audience. I just want to say that Jaime here also mentioned the surfer from Morocco. Says that he speaks 7 languages, so he's a phenomenon, he says, including Portuguese. Yeah,
Ramzi's a great story and has become a celebrity in Morocco. And as I said, we had the Minister of Sport with us on that first Sunday morning of our competitions in Tokyo, and the member of the IOC Executive Board from Morocco, Nawala Moutwakel, as well, was there with us. So the athletes are our biggest ambassadors and advocates and voices, and we will continue to promote them for that.
Last one here from Katarzyna from Poland. Quick question: which organization is responsible for surfing rules and regulations, and what's the process of amendments?
Yeah, that would be us. I mean, like any other international federation, we were responsible for the delivery of the technical elements of the surfing competitions in Tokyo. So it was our rules. We have a very symbiotic relationship with the WSL. So we have exactly the same rules when it comes to judging criteria and priority rules. So 2 key elements of the competition for us are mirrored, and this is not the same for all sports between the pro leagues and the international arena. But for us, it was very important to be absolutely aligned. In the judges' tower in Tokyo, we had a mixture of judges who primarily work in the pro tour, but also in our events. So it's our responsibility. It was our responsibility to appoint the judges. It was our responsibility to find the qualification system. we're the ones responsible for the rules. That's what the IOC expects.
Great. But before we go, have just one more. I'm going to ask you for if you want to recommend a book or something. Is there anything, before we get to that, is there anything any message that you'd like to leave before we go? And you can think of a book that you might want to recommend.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the I can tell you the book, but here's a thought which I'll leave. You know, we were talking about leadership, and I want to tell a little story. I can go a couple minutes past 9. You know, when I first started my very first job with the IAAF, important job, I was in Tokyo for the World Championships in 1991, and I was sitting at lunch with a group of executives from NBC, and I was talking about something that was completely out of my over my head. The discussion is not important, the detail, but I was very passionate about it. And there at the table was a guy from Israel named Alex Gillidy, who's now in the IOC but was an executive of NBC. And he pulled me aside afterwards and said, "You don't have any idea what you're talking about, but that fire in your belly, don't lose that fire." And that I've heard many times, and I guess is an important piece of advice for the people who are watching. Be passionate about what you do, care about it, because that comes through your attitude, how you approach whatever you do in your job, from the most mundane to the most important. You know, that people can tell when you have that fire in your belly. So that's one thing as a final thought. The book that I would recommend that I've been reading lately, and is a great book for business, by the founder of Patagonia, who's a surfer. And in fact, the book's called Let My People Go Surfing, Yvon Chouinard.
Right.
A great philosopher on business, modern business, an extraordinary success story, and a great read. So something I would recommend to your audience.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. Any podcast or YouTube channel as well that you would like to recommend?
Well, I mean, obviously there's our YouTube channel. Podcasts, I haven't had as much. I used to listen to a guy named James Altucher, based out of New York, who does talks a lot about business and entrepreneurship. And, you know, that is an important part. People think of a sport federation and they think of, oh, well, they're just doing the rules and they're technical organizations. No, a modern, successful international federation today is run like a business, is run as a business. Bottom line, you know, we have to meet our goals. We have an annual business plan. You have to be ready to do a little bit of everything, especially in a small organization like this. So it means, you know, financial planning, it means marketing, it means communications. You know, it's one of the nice things about sport is that it gives you a view across all those different areas that you can apply to business, you can apply to entrepreneurship. So all things that are relevant for your audience.
Right. Bob, really, I want to thank you again for being here.
Pleasure.
With us. You know, for me, you've been throughout the years, we meet here and there. You're always very kind and generous, and really appreciated you being here with us today. And it's fun. I have been enjoying so much this kind of conversations that I've been having, like the one today. But the great thing is, you know, if people also pay attention to that, it's amazing lecture for life, right? So for free. It's so I think it's worthwhile. I'm really pleased and thankful for you being here. And I'm sure that the people watching at home also enjoyed a lot. We already showed so many messages here. And I want also to thank people that are, you know, with us until now and participating and sending questions. We'll be here again this week. We're going to do 2 on Thursday morning here, actually. So you'll be asleep. I'll be talking with Michael Payne. Nice. He just launched a book, and we'll be talking about that and many other things. Bob, thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon. Who knows, surfing together sometime.
Yeah, with pleasure, Joao, and thank you for having me. It was a fun to talk about a little bit of everything, and hope it was useful, and good luck on what you're doing. And thank you for this important platform and service you're providing to your community. And good luck.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.